I don't know if I could love our commercial anymore. Like every time I see it, I absolutely love it. I'm so excited to be talking about our newly published book, Never Give Up. Have you ever felt like quitting on something, but then you didn't? You just kept going forward? Or maybe the question should be really, how many times have you felt like quitting on something, but you kept going forward? And then the results that you got were great or just fantastic. Or maybe you met somebody that you never imagined that you would meet. Well, I'm excited to bring to you one of our authors in the book, Never Give Up, Melissa Kimmerling. Melissa, welcome to the stage. So
Hi.
excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Linda.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your chapter in this book. But before we get into that, your chapter is called Finding Your Purpose on Accident or by Accident, which I love that title. But before we get into that, why don't you share with us a little bit about you, who you are, and what you're all about?
Awesome. Well, like you said, my name is Melissa Kimmerling, and I am an occupational therapist. So, occupational therapy is a health profession focused on helping people either gain or regain the ability to do the things that are meaningful to them in their everyday life. And that can be something as simple as taking care of their own self, all the way to return to work or return to industry after an illness or an accident or something. So, I work right now in academia, so helping to prepare the future generation of occupational therapists. But my story has a little bit to do with how I even ended up doing something like this in the first place. So,
Awesome. I love it. It sounds like you're loving what you're doing,
mhm.
finding your purpose, right? Loving what you're doing. And we're going to get into that in just a minute, but I'd love to have you just share from your perspective, if you don't mind, is like, what is the state of our youth today? I'm 60. I've lived, through my life, right? But what is the state of our youth today? What's your thought?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a trying time for today's youth. I think the pathway for what they're supposed to do next is not as clear. I come from a generation where we were just taught we were supposed to go to college, we were empowered to do it, and we were told to sign whatever paperwork it took to get ourselves there. And now we're in kind of a crisis with student loans and student loan debt, and we need trade workers and we need people in a lot of different facets of industry. And what that path is and how to get out there and get your life started is not as clear as it's been, I think, in generations past. And on top of having, additional challenges with mental health and society and social media. So I think our youth have a lot that is facing them, but I also think that they are a generation of change makers and problem
Mhm.
solvers and people who are absolutely going to be the ones to change this world and to hopefully continue to move things maybe in the right direction. So a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenge, but a lot of promise, I believe.
I love that. What you're saying basically is there is hope, right?
I think so. Yes, I do.
Which reminds me of the movie Star Wars when Princess Leia, I don't know if you ever saw this, but Princess Leia, she was looking at the screen and she was like this, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I don't know why my brain went there, but it did. And so let me come back. Let me come back. We're talking about the book, Never Give Up, Stories of Perseverance. So exactly what you're talking about there, Melissa, because
Mhm.
when we think about, our lives and what's in store for those who are coming behind us, what kind of legacy are we leaving behind for them? Back in the day, we were told what to do, like you're mentioning, but I think a lot of parents nowadays, they're kind of worried about telling their kids what to do because society has placed this stigma on on different beliefs and different thoughts that we have about
Mhm.
what's best for our kids, and I
Mhm.
think just the whole thing is it's just turning into, lack of a better term, into a shit show, and that's my
Mhm.
true belief.
Right.
And but how do we come out of that?
Right.
Because it doesn't matter how bad it is, it's like, how do we come out of that? How do we persevere through that? How
Mhm.
do we never give up through that? So why
Right.
don't you share with us, like, what's your story? And we don't have a whole lot of time, but
Sure.
share with us your story of perseverance and what it was for you to write this chapter, Finding Your Purpose by Accident. Like, what exactly does that mean?
Right. Well, I've always felt compelled to share this story because it comes up, right? It comes up when you're meeting people, when someone's asking, especially with what I do for a living, how did you get to become an occupational therapist? And my story is always, well, something pretty terrible happened to me. And this is in a strange way what that outcome was. And every time I tell that story, because it comes up. Like I said, I get asked, how did you get to do this? Because I work with students who want to know how I found the career path. Um, so I really wanted to share that tragedy and trauma, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But if those things happen to you, I do think that there are opportunities to reflect and think about how those experiences can be used to, fuel you moving forward, maybe in a different career or in a different path in life, or just they alter your perspective on the world. And so I was in between my sophomore and junior year in high school. So at a very pivotal time in your life, right? Right when you're starting to think about what you're going to do and whatnot. When I was in a car accident, and a really bad one, I broke 18 bones all at the same time, including 5 in my back. And just to put that in perspective, I think Christopher Reeve broke 1, right? And ended up paralyzed for the remainder of his life. So I'm very lucky to be sitting here speaking and breathing on my own and moving my arms and legs and talking and, having a life. I recognize that. But it was not easy. It was very hard, and went through a lot of physical ups and downs, a lot of mental ups and downs. But the thing that helped me get back to my life was participating in my therapy services and doing things for myself again and regaining my independence and starting to help life look like, maybe a little bit like what it did before. And it was right at the time of my life I was exploring career paths and thought, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could be one of these people that helps other people find hope after the trauma, the tragedy, the illness. And so that's kind of what I talk about in my chapter, is kind of what I went through. Because by itself, it seems like, it's a big story in and of itself, but I have a lot of other things that happened to me too that kind of just stacked this on top of a lot of reasons to have just said, well, I'm just going to have a rough life, right? I'm going to be a victim. I'm going to have a rough life. And I feel like something clicked in me where I just decided I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to let it ruin my life any more than it already had. And so nowadays, working with people who have gone through trauma, tragedy, illness, injury, they're still in that, right? They're still in the grief and the anger and the sadness, and they don't always see what life might be like when they come out of it. And I hope that sharing a story like this can give some people some hope that there is life on the other side of this. There is recovery on the other side of this. Life might not look the same, but it doesn't mean it can't be wonderful. And maybe there's a piece of it that you can even use to help somebody else someday. So not right away, focus on yourself right away, obviously, but it just feels like something that even if it helps one person, I wanted to share it.
That's awesome. It was by accident. It was
Yeah,
an accident that
literally.
created that. So
Yeah.
did you have you grown up in a positive environment, and no need to say anything about your family or whatever, but
Yeah.
did you grow up in a positive environment? Were they behind you? Were they like, you got this, keep going? What
Yeah.
was that like? Because not everybody has that kind of support.
Yeah, I hate to say that I would, if I was honest, I would say no. I lost my mom about 5 years prior to that. She died of
Um,
cancer when I was 11, and she was just really my rock. And like any family that loses a matriarch, that's really hard. So you're dealing with already having some significant disruption in your family,
yeah.
and I don't blame anybody for anything that happened, but it just makes it harder when you now have one person earning all of the income to keep a roof over your head. And then you have this daughter that now needs someone to take care of her all the time. But what do you do? Do you stop working and lose the house? Or do you kind of leave her be and hope she can figure it out? And so it wasn't a situation where someone was always there and someone, was emotionally there or could handle emotionally being there. And there were a lot of people, but I hate saying it, but if you don't have your mom in a time like that, it really felt like I really missed her during that time.
Yeah.
And so I was really left to grieve and move through a lot of that and to try to get back to my life myself. A lot of it was me and myself. And, I drove myself to therapies, even with just one arm. I'm driving myself to those kind of things. And I do think that contributed to some of my independent spirit, my drive, the accomplishments, the achievements is, as much as, again, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I hope that my children never have to be alone in doing those things, but it did create a personality type that I have where I feel like I can do it and I don't always need help. And right. And so again, something kind of good came out of it, even though during that time it was hard to be alone doing that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that because one of the things is that we never know, everybody has their own background, their own baggage that they're carrying around.
Mhm.
And I find it fascinating the more people I meet that have like a situation like you, or something
Mhm.
where something tragic happened at a younger age or what have you,
Mhm.
is if we think about it, is like two people experiencing the same exact thing might have a completely different outcome because of their mindset and its
Absolutely.
mindset. So you're talking
Absolutely.
about mental health, right? It's your mindset. Your mindset was in the place that
Mhm.
was able to help you move through that and get through it, with a positive tone, where somebody else, could get into alcohol, drugs, and
Yes.
just carousing around, doing things they shouldn't be doing,
Yeah.
really. And so I just find it fascinating that people go through situations with completely different results. By
Yeah.
the way, we're talking about the book right now called Never Give Up: Stories of Perseverance. Go get your copy today at actiontakerspublishing.com/never. As well as a lot of our authors are giving away free gifts. So go over there, cash in on those free gifts. Go to actiontakerspublishing.com/never. So we're talking to Melissa Kimmerling, and her chapter is titled Finding Your Purpose by Accident. And she shared the story of the accident that she had that led to her finding her purpose. So share with us, so today we've got, oh my gosh, we literally have 2.5 minutes left. So we're going to wrap this up, but I'm
Sure.
going to ask you this final question is, what do you want the readers to take away from reading this book and or your chapter?
Sure. I'm really excited to read the other stories that are in this book too, because life continues to have those challenges, right? It's not like one thing happens to you and you get through it and you're never going to have another thing. Like, I just think it's going to continue to happen. And it might not be as traumatic as this kind of tragedy, but it is how you decide to show up and how you decide to move through. And I really believe that you have the power to decide how you're going to respond to the things that happen in your life, even the ones that are completely out of your control. And I hope that people find stories that inspire them to have, make that decision. Like, I'm not going to let this ruin my life. I'm not going to let this send my family down a path. I'm not going to let this obstacle, totally ruin things for my children or my family. And so I hope that people use it and can find at least a few stories in there that really resonate with them, that they can share and that give them motivation to say, you know what, I can do it too. I can do it too.
I can do it too. Yes. Great message, right? Find people in your life that can help you through it, that support you,
Yeah,
that will help you through, instead of people who are going to beat you down. Because we
that's
got
right.
those beat you down people all over the place, but
That's
we
right.
also have that supportive, positive, uplifting people, right? It's
Yeah.
like finding those people. So Melissa, you're over on LinkedIn. They can connect
Yeah.
with you. Just find you, Melissa Kimmerling,
Yep.
connect with you over there, and definitely reach out to her, connect with her.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, if you have a story like that you want to talk to her about, and
Yeah.
just see how you two can connect with each other.
Absolutely.
Melissa, I want to thank you so much for being part of this book and sharing your message, your story. This really is about never giving up hope, your desires, your dreams, whatever it is you want to manifest in your life. Go out there and get it. And I want to thank you again so much. Go to actiontakerspublishing.com/never. Get your copy of the book and get those free gifts. And we'll see y'all later.
Bye. Thank you.
I actually was one of those people that was put off by the title initially. And after a conversation with Sally, who's very good at convincing, but she just really encouraged me to be able to tell at least a part of my story in this book. And so I kind of embraced going outside my comfort zone. And so now I actually tell people the actual title, Get Shit Done, instead of the shortened without the full word version. So